Week 4 was full of great matches, with many having major implications on the Stage 1 playoffs, with now only 1 week left and only 8 games to play. Whilst the teams at the top and bottom became a lot clearer, the sides that make up the middle of the pack caused me some headaches. So let's get right into why I ranked each team where I eventually did. Starting with the bottom 4 teams, but I feel have really become quite clear over the past couple of weeks. We have, to no one's surprise, the Washington Justice still at 20. The LA Valiant and the Florida Mayhem also remain at their respective 19 and 18 positions. And finally, we have the Houston Outlaws moving down 1 spot to 17. All 4 of these teams have been largely disappointing this season, and their play has on the whole been quite poor, particularly in regard to the use of their ultimates. Washington looks lacking in quality, with them only really improving their coordination, and honestly don't look like winning a game unless they play a team from this bracket. The LA Valiant Stage 1 is over, and they are 0-7. It's strange as they look like they got worse week by week despite keeping most matches very competitive. They are at a big risk of ruining their season if they don't bounce back in Stage 2 behind players like Space and Izzyaki. Also, they need to bring back Custer. Florida has probably shown the most team improvement and development of these teams in the stage, with new signings Apply and McGravy successfully integrating themselves into their revamped lineup. Unfortunately, the overall skill level of the team isn't great, with players such as Swan and Chris consistently underperforming, and if it hadn't been for Boombox's absence, this team could easily be winless as well. Rounding out the bottom 4, we have the Outlaws, who like the Valiant have seemingly gotten worse on a week by week basis, as emphasised by their terrible game in the week against the Valiant, that to be honest was unwatchable at many points. They might have 3 wins, but when you have a closer look, you see that they were against 2 teams that I have ranked below them, and another that I have ranked only 1 place above them, so they actually suggest that they've not had the hardest schedule in the world. Following this group, the next 4 teams we have are mainly in this position due to their inconsistencies in play and strategies. Embodying this the most, with the Hangzhou Spark at 16, down 6, or the Chengdu Hunters and Shanghai Dragons, who are unmoved at 15 and 14, and then the Seoul Dynasty, who themselves have dropped 1 spot to 13. When Hangzhou comes to play, you can never be quite sure what team is going to show up. Players like Gushui and Ria have an enormous amount of talent and potential, but as the stage progressed, it just felt like they got more confused about their starting team and playstyle, as well as being held back by poor ultimate management and their over-aggression being punished. The Hunters are unique, and in many ways should be in their own rankings by themselves. Given how they largely aren't playing the same game to everyone else, this means that one game they can be beaten convincingly 4-0 by the 2 teams I have just above them, and the next they can almost topple the Vancouver Titans behind their monster main tank Ameng. For now, given their triple DPS and Hammond comps are so different to other teams, they're clearly separated from the bottom group, but will be left in this position with a small asterisk by their side. Shanghai and Seoul are interesting, given they have plenty of talented players in their sides, and in certain moments have proven their quality, with wins over teams like London or the Gladiators. Yet, equally, there have been moments, such as the games to Dallas, in which both of these sides, despite high expectations, just fell short and looked like subpar teams, so I'll need to see more consistency before I become confident in their team's potentials. The Boston Uprising rise once to 12. The Paris Eternal are the big droppers of the week, down 6 to 11. The London Spitfire also drop, twice to 10, and the Guangzhou Charge are once again at 9. These are the teams that make up the middle of the pack for me, with all of them putting in very impressive performances against some of the top sides this season. Boston are very reliant on their one-dimensional Fusion's offense, that has been exploited in the past, but when this is firing on all cylinders, like this week, it makes the Uprising one of the strongest GOAT teams in the league. Indeed, a similar thing could be said for Paris, whose aggressive 3-3 tormented the league in the first couple of the weeks. They have dropped heavily on the back of 3 blowouts, albeit to tough opposition, but they will need to show that Cruz doesn't feed, and that their Zarya play isn't holding them back as they play 2 matches in Week 5. London had been looking to trend positively after a rough first week and a half, and ever since Guard has played Brigitte with profit on Zarya. This team looked to have transformed. Their loss to Shanghai last week highlighted that not all their problems in regard to the 3-3 meta have been resolved, with Jester regularly punished for his far weaker Reinhardt compared to his Winston. Finally, Guangzhou have continued to impress, with players like Hotba, Rio, Shu and Happy consistently performing well in their series, that have for the most part not been too easy. Their loss to LA this week showed that they still have a few growing pains to iron out, but as far as their progression goes for an expansion teams, they could be happy on the whole with a small chance still of making the stage playoffs if they can topple the Titans this week. From 8 to 5, with the LA Gladiators leaping up 9 positions to 8, the Philadelphia Fusion at 7 for another week, the Dallas Fuel finally rise to 6, up 5 places, and lastly the Atlanta Reign falling 2 spots to 5. At their best, these teams have all looked really good and would be able to give the teams in my top tier grouping a competitive series. However, for one reason or another, each one has been held back, but not as frequently as the teams below them in my standings. The Gladiators finally showed the level of performance many, including myself, have been expecting to see at the start of the season, with Decay and Raw looking comfortable and playing great with the whole team coordinating perfectly. They perhaps showed quality equal to that of the top teams, but as it was only shown in 1 week, and they only achieved 3 wins this stage, I cannot move them up any further without more evidence. Philadelphia once again fumbled their way through their game against the Valiant, but still managed to pick up the victory and take them to 4 wins. This team lives and dies by the play of Carpe and Boombox, and they just don't seem to lose when it comes to games 5s, so until they do, I'm quite happy leaving them here. Dallas is perhaps one of the most uncomfortable placings in the entire rankings, as they have had one of the easiest strength of schedules of any teams, and were very inconsistent to start. But I did say that I would respect a dominating victory over Shanghai this week, which they achieved, and none of the other teams around them really performed that great, so I've moved them up. It's now over to their key players, OGE, Unco and AKM, to shore up a playoff place against Boston to confirm my ranking, or they will be falling right back down. Atlanta might also be positioned a little high here at 5, but this was their first major blunder of the season against the resurging Gladiators, and given it might just have been a bad game, I will hold judgment until their last week of matches, to definitely suggest their eventual placement. We finally reach my top 4 teams that I think have distanced themselves from the others around them. Toronto continue their trending climb, up 2 to 4. San Francisco also rise, 1 to 3. And the Vancouver Titans and New York Excelsior shock nobody by remaining my number 2 number 1 respectively. The Defiant are the only other side, apart from the top 2, to have locked in their stage playoff spot behind the impressive play of Ivy, Envy and Neko. This team has improved across the board week on week, and the only thing we need to see is how far this team performs against other top teams, as the schedule has treated them rather kindly so far. San Francisco finally claimed my 3rd spot and title of best Western team in the league, that they probably deserved last week. They were in a position, due to the number of great teams that they face, that they might not make the playoffs, but given these losses have come to New York, Vancouver and the Gladiators, you can easily understand. Their aggressive and confident play was shown in a more mature manner this week, and disregarding the scoreline, they gave the Excelsior one of the toughest games they've had to play all season. Vancouver is 1 game away from an undefeated stage, and the quality they put on display has arguably been to the highest standard of the entire league. Yet they remain at 2 because I worry about their arrogance that was clearly on display in their escape of the Hunters. Bumper is an amazing player, but he is not right in the head. The aggressive plays that he will attempt at this level will not often work, and finally a team punished him properly for this. So his team will either need to tone things down a little, or crank the notch up to 10, and hope that by letting Bumper run wild, the world will kneel before him, if the Titans wish to take the top spot. To conclude, New York remain at number 1, and now have a week off to enhance their attributes: unbeaten, dominant, clinical, and predatorial. With that, I finally reached the end of my power rankings breakdown, and I'd like to thank you for watching. If you have any different opinions, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. With a delay to proceedings till Saturday, you can expect a couple of analysis pieces from me over the next few days, so please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, for more Overwatch League content moving forward.